Hi, everybody. Let's go over quarter two homework 6, the first proofs homework. This one is a little more straightforward than some of the later ones. There's not a lot of follow-up steps. So where do we start when we're doing a proof? We start with the givens. So I'm going to write down angle P is congruent to angle S, and I know that because it's given. I'm going to copy paste those given statements. Because they're angles, I need to label those with arcs. So I'm going to go arc, arc at the P and at the S. Then we check and we see if we need a follow-up step. And these are both angles that are congruent to each other. So since they have a congruent symbol and they're both angles in the triangle, we don't need a follow-up step for those. So we are ready to move on to given number 2. PR is congruent to RS. How do we know that? Because it's given. What are those? They're segments. For segments, we go tick, tick. Do those have a congruent symbol? Yes, and they are segments in the triangles, so we don't need a follow-up step. So we're ready to move on, but unfortunately we're missing any other given information. So our only choices when we're out of information is either the proof can't be done, which probably isn't going to happen all that often in here, or we have a reflexive property shared side, or we have vertical angles that are congruent. And in this diagram, anytime you have an X or a bow tie looking picture, you have these vertical angles. So I'm going to name them with R in the middle. So angle PRQ and angle SRT. I want to say those are vertical angles, but that's not enough. I need to make sure that I say so they are congruent to each other. So vertical angles gives you 2 congruent angles. All right, does that have a congruent symbol? Yes, it does. Are those angles in the triangles? Yes, they are, so we don't need a backup. Do we have 3 congruent sets of things now? We do, so we're ready for the triangles. And they named them for us because that's actually the final step in our proof. So triangle PQR is congruent to triangle STR. I knew that that went last because it was the thing I'm trying to prove. And the reason for the congruent triangles are always our shortcuts. Side, 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 angle, side. This one has 2 angles and the side in between. So angle, side, angle is our reason. So that's proof number 1. That's a good classic example of a vertical angles kind of proof. Now let's move on to example number 2, which does not have any vertical angles in it. This one's going to need a few more follow-up steps to it also. So this one is kind of taking it up a little notch. So where do I start? Just like the last time, I start with a given. KH bisects angle GHJ. How do I know that? Because it's given. Does not have a congruent symbol, so it needs a follow-up step. How do I label an angle bisector? I go to the middle letter H and I go arc, arc. So that right there is my follow-up step. I want to name the angles that I just marked. So angle GHK is congruent to angle JHK. I'm going to highlight that so that I know that I named one of my congruent pieces. And how do I figure out what the reason is? Well, I would look up above it and look for what the key vocabulary word is, and it's bisects. So this was an angle bisector. What do angle bisectors do? They divide an angle into 2 congruent angles. All right, I am done with that one because now I have 2 congruent things, so I can move on to the next given, which is GH congruent to HJ. Tick, tick. We're in luck this time because is there a congruent symbol? Yes. Are those segments in the triangle? Yes. So all I need to do is say it's given and move on. Now we're at the point in the proof where we've run out of givens. So it's probably either going to be vertical angles, which we already established that this one doesn't have. It's not an X kind of shape. Or reflexive property, a shared side. So yes, there is a segment in the middle, KH. I'm going to put an S on it. I'm going to highlight it in pink. And that's the last piece that I'm looking for. When you're using the reflexive property, you literally just say the same segment twice. KH is congruent to itself by the reflexive property. All right, do I have my 3 congruent pairs of things? Yes. So whenever I have my 3 congruent things, what am I ready for? I'm ready for the triangles. Because it's not the final conclusion I'm trying to draw, I can use whatever letters I want for the first triangle. So I'm going to go triangle GHK is congruent to triangle JHK. My reason is side, angle, side. And then how do I know what to do last? Well, the proof tells me what to do last. Angle GKH is congruent to angle JKH. When those are a pair of angles in the congruent triangles, that's when I use that step CPCTC, which says that I can steal corresponding parts from my congruent triangles. Hope that helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.